Hey, what's going on everybody? It's Joshua here. In this video, I want to discuss with you exactly why cash is keeping you poor and what you should be doing instead of just holding on to cash. This is a very basic concept, but it's something that like 99% of people are not applying in their life, and that's a problem. If you ever have a dream or have a goal of becoming wealthy one day, this is a concept that you have to understand. It's a concept that anybody who's built a substantial amount of wealth understand. So when I say cash keeps you poor, I literally mean that like holding on to physical cash, whether it's like in your shoebox at home or underneath your mattress. I really hope it's not underneath your mattress, or if it's just like sitting at your local bank in some low interest bearing savings account. Both of those are cash. And if you're doing either of those things, then you're probably never going to be wealthy. And here's why. Cash that is left alone does not grow, it loses value. Now, that's a really important concept to understand, and it's really the driving point of this video, so I'm gonna repeat it, and I really want you to listen to what I'm saying. Money that is left alone, AKA sitting in your shoebox or sitting in some bank account, collecting no interest whatsoever. Money left alone does not grow, it loses value. That concept is true thanks in part to, or thanks in whole to inflation. Inflation, basically put, is the rising price of goods and services. So let me give you an example of that. Have you ever seen those like old McDonald's posters and there's a sign that says like 15-cent hamburgers, but nowadays you go and buy that same exact burger that your grandfather was able to buy for 15 cents, and now that same burger is $3. That is inflation at work. So basically what happens with inflation is that the actual purchasing power of your money decreases year after year. And so the average inflation rate within America is, it tends to run about 3% every single year on average. That means that every single year, money that is sitting in your shoebox or sitting in your bank account is actually losing value. A very oversimplified example of inflation would be, let's say for example, you put $100 into your local savings account. This time next year, because of inflation, that $100 is technically going to be worth $97. Now, it doesn't mean that this time next year when you go check your bank account that you're gonna have $97 instead of $100. Your bank account will still have $100. It's just that the purchasing power of that $100 has decreased. So now that you understand what inflation is, I wanna give you a really concrete example that I think is gonna drive home the point of this video and really help you to understand the significance of saving versus investing. So let's say, for example, that back in 1975, your grandfather decided to put $1,000 into his local bank saving account. He was gonna save that money for you for the year 2021. So he puts the money in savings and that's it. He doesn't do anything else with it. He leaves it there. 46 years later, you are there to claim your $1,000. Great, right? Pretty awesome. And now you may be thinking to yourself, yeah, Joshua, that's great. What's the problem with that? You put $1,000 into the account in 1975 and I got $1,000 in 2021. It hasn't changed. It's still $1,000, right? Yes, technically it is still $1,000. However, the purchasing power of that $1,000 has declined substantially over that 46-year period. In the year 1975, that $1,000 that your grandfather put away for you had the same purchasing power as about $5,258. That basically means that your grandfather could have gone into Best Buy and purchased a new flat screen TV, the newest PlayStation, Apple MacBook Pro back in 1975, and he could have purchased all of that stuff, and guess what? He would have been able to do it because he had the money to do it. Now imagine you in 2021 going into Best Buy with $1,000 and trying to buy the same stuff that your grandfather did. Guess what? You wouldn't be able to, because that $1,000 does not have the same purchasing power that it did back in 1975. Now imagine for a second, instead of saving that money, he invested it for you. And let's just say for the sake of example that his return on investment was 9%. That $1,000 every single year was getting a 9% return, which by the way, 9% is pretty conservative considering that the stock market actually gives between, on average, a 10 and 11% return. So okay, your grandfather invested that $1,000 at a 9% 9% return rate. Let's look at some numbers here. I think when you see this, you're gonna be pretty amazed and understand why exactly cash keeps you poor and then what you should do instead, okay? So if your grandfather invested $1,000 in 1975 with a 9% average return, after about 46 years, you would have a little bit over $57,000. That is a very, very far cry from the $1,000 that you would have gotten if your grandfather instead just put the money in savings. So at this point, I really hope that you can sort of see why cash keeps you poor, right? If you're just storing money in your shoebox or in a savings account, your money is not working for you. That's a very basic concept that wealthy people understand and that they practice every single day. The reason you're not able to build your wealth is because you're not making your money work for you. There's a difference. So you working for money means that you are trading your time for money, right? The problem with that is that you only have a very limited amount of time. Most of us are only able to work maybe 8 hours per day. And if you're really hustling, then you might be able to get like 15 hours in. But nobody, and I mean nobody, is able to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's physically impossible. You would die. Money can work 7 days a week for you, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year without stopping. Money is not going to complain that you're overworking it. It's not going to ask for a raise. It's not going to ask for lunch breaks. Wealthy people understand that, and so instead of saving their cash, instead of hoarding their cash in a shoebox somewhere, they instead take that money and they put it to work in investments. Now, when you think of the term investment, I don't want you to think of it as like this broad, far off in the distance idea that you don't have access to. Maybe back in your grandfather's time, that was true, because back then there weren't as many resources, there weren't as many advancements in technology as we have nowadays. So back then it was probably true that typically only people with money could invest. Nowadays, you don't have any excuse. And so for example, take exchange traded funds. ETFs are actually my personal favorite way to invest in the stock market. I don't have time to research individual stocks, look up to see what the newest growth stock is or what the newest IPO is. I don't have the energy to do any of that. I would prefer to just invest in ETFs. Now, I specifically invest in S&P 500 ETFs. What I'm doing is I'm buying a share of the ETF, but within that share is all of the underlying assets that make up the fund. All the underlying assets happen to be all 500 or roughly 500 companies that make up the S&P 500. And so when I buy a share of that ETF, I am immediately giving my portfolio exposure to all 500 companies without actually having to go buy all 500 individual stocks. Used to, before ETFs and before index funds, you would have to have some experience in picking stocks, because the only way for you to build a diversified, a healthy diversified portfolio was to actually know what you were picking. But nowadays, that's not the case anymore, because you can just go buy ETFs. For example, if you're interested in only investing in the healthcare sector, you can buy specific ETFs that only invest in the healthcare sector. Perhaps you want to only invest in technology stocks. Well, guess what? There's ETFs for technology stocks. I mean, there are literally thousands of ETFs out there, and you can invest in anything that you can imagine. If you want to go invest in cows, guess what? There are literally ETFs for cattle. Okay, what am I trying to say with all of this, right? That was a lot of information. Stop saving your money and start investing it, period. Stop letting your money sleep and be lazy in your low interest bearing savings account, and give your money some legs, give it a shovel and push it, make it work for you, okay? So that it can make you money. Ultimately, the goal should be to have your money working for you so much and making you so much money that you don't have to work for money as much. And when you do work for money, you can decide what you want to work on. And so that opens up more opportunity for you to work on things that you're actually passionate about instead of things that you're not passionate about because you're just doing it to make money. I want to end off this video by saying to you that, listen, anybody can make this happen. Anybody has the opportunity to start investing, to build their wealth, and to make it happen. It doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter your skin color, it doesn't matter if you stink or if you drive a $2,000 car versus a $200,000 car. Money doesn't care about any of that stuff, because money is an object. It doesn't have feelings or emotions, and it doesn't have opinions, and it's up to you to decide what you do with money, and that ultimately determines the trajectory of your future. All right, guys, that was fantastic. I hope that you've gotten some value from this video. Hey, listen, If you haven't subscribed already, consider doing it. I would appreciate that so much. And honestly, I would love to see you guys back again. So yeah, that's all I've got for you guys today. Until next time, see ya.